Unfortunately, I didn't get these red boots for a performance review, but I do have a review on these red Harden Volume 7s. If you get the right fit for these shoes, they're going to be very fun to play with. Welcome back to the WearTesters YouTube channel. My name is Alan, and today we're doing a performance review on the Adidas Harden Volume 7 basketball shoes. I'm actually in the camp of people who like the way they look. Now, I know aesthetics don't matter when it comes to performance, but you know, as they say, if you think you look good, you'll feel good, and if you feel good, you'll play better. Wow, I feel good. I think the Harden 7s are great performers. The potential weaknesses will only really depend on your preferences. So let's get right to the review. So fit is even more important for this type of shoe because it has an ankle sock collar. Ankle sock collar shoes can be good for you if you're craving minimal padding around your ankles, when you don't like, being restricted in that area. Also, once you put your feet into those type of shoes, you're pretty much locked in. In my personal experience with ankle sock collar shoes, the ease of entry was always my main issue. For example, when I tried fitting into the Trae Young 2s in store, putting my feet into those shoes was extremely difficult. This was without my ankle braces. I went up half a size and even a full size, and there was still some difficulty putting my feet into those shoes. I also have the Wade 808 Ultras. Those were better than, the Trae Young 2s in terms of fitting my foot in, but when I did decide to wear ankle braces with them, it was still a difficult task to fit my foot in.
I'll make it fit!
Unlike those other ankle sock collar shoes, fitting into this shoe was easier than expected. The ankle sock collar in this shoe is more loose. It has the luxury of being loose because the sock part of the shoe is disconnected from the rest of the thicker upper materials of the shoe. So for these Hardens, it was easier to fit my foot in without braces, and when I did decide to wear braces with these, it was more manageable to put my feet in. You get the advantage of ankle sock collar shoes, which primarily comes from the minimal feeling that you'll get around your ankles, but you still get a very nice and supportive hugging feel for your midfoot and your forefoot. So what size should you get? I think for most people, going true to size will work. If you feel like the heel cushion in these shoes are not thick enough and you have narrow feet, I think you could even get away with going down half a size. Chris, in his initial review, recommended going true to size. I also asked Stanley, who is one of our wear testers. He has slightly flat and wide feet, and he went true to size, and he also had no problems with the shoe. I have regular feet and a medium arch. If I was someone who exclusively just used these shoes without ankle braces, I would go true to size as well. If you have wide feet, or if you have ankle braces just like I do, and you don't mind a little extra space in the toe box area, then going half a size may be helpful. In regards to the materials and how they affect the performance, the biggest thing that's really stood out to me is the weight of the shoe versus how they actually felt on foot when I was playing. So the overall weight of these shoes is actually heavy. It's about 460 grams, and most of the shoes that I review in my size are under 400 grams. The weird thing though is that when I do play with these shoes, they feel very light on foot. So what's working in the Harden Volume 7's favor is that it doesn't have that traditional tongue, and it also has this minimal ankle sock collar again. Those two things give you an impression that you have a light shoe on your feet, when really it's just distributing the weight to other parts of the shoe. The extra weight in the shoe will lend itself well in terms of stability. To further add to that element of stability, the shoes have a flat and wide base. It has minimal arch in the midfoot area, and the protruding outriggers just gives an overall stable and well-balanced ride for me. You have this toe overlay for the shoe that is reminiscent of the Harden Volume 1s. The toe overlay is not as independent as it was in the first version, but I think it still slightly allows the rest of the shoe to flex and not affect that toe overlay. Even though it feels super cheap, it's soft and comfortable, so I didn't feel any irritation for my toes. You have these puffer vest materials, which are substantially thick. They will make your feet feel hot, so ventilation in the lateral and medial parts of the shoe isn't going to be the greatest. I think it's not so bad in this upper part. You're trading off ventilation with an upper that provides you a really nice and supportive hugging feel. I like that this sidewall is slightly soft so that when I do make my hard stop, it's not gonna dig into my feet. The laces in this shoe is thick, and that's important because there isn't a traditional tongue in the shoe. So having thick laces allows you to have a good amount of pressure in that top area without sacrificing any support. I wish that heel cushion was thicker. With other shoes, even when I go half a size up, I could still get away with playing with braces and without braces. But since this is an ankle sock collar shoe, that isn't as easy. Over time, the ankle sock collar got stretched out and it didn't have its original amount of compression. So when I did wear these shoes without braces, after a lot of testing, I experienced some heel slippage. I think that could have been fixed by just having a thicker heel cushion here. In terms of torsional support, you're pretty much covered as well because this shoe features a bottom loaded shank plate. It adds some rigidity to the shoe. There is some forefoot flex in this part of the shoe, and I think that is thanks to the X shape of the shank plate. Since the shank plate is not overly thick and it doesn't run right through the middle in the forefoot area, that does allow some forefoot flex. So you have a shoe that doesn't feel overly stiff throughout. What also helps is that thinner cushion in that forefoot area. You have light strike in the forefoot and you have a cage boost in the heel. Do I wish the cushion setup was full length boost instead? Yeah, but it makes sense that they had to probably implement light strike since it is a newer technology. I say you give this cushion setup a chance even if you're not a fan of light strike. The light strike here feels different. It feels bouncier even though it is on the thinner side. The comfort level of this cushion setup is surprisingly very comfortable. It's more bouncy than firm. It has a nice mixture of both. It has that hybrid quality. If you're still somehow unsatisfied by the cushion feeling in the forefoot area, then what you can do is replace that insole. The heel does have boost, but it is caged. The caging for the boost here is soft. It still allows you to reap the benefits of the boost, but it harnesses it a little bit. If you're someone who values heel impact protection, or maybe you're a heel striker, then you'll really appreciate the boost in the back. This type of hybrid cushion where it's not too bouncy and not too firm really pairs well with that flat wide base that I mentioned earlier. For me personally, it might just be a coincidence, but whenever I find myself playing in shoes that have a flat wide base, like the Zoom Freak 4s and Dawn Issue 4s, and also now with this shoe, I always find myself shooting better. And I think a large part of that is because of the balance that wide bases provide. I'm not saying that I'm a really good shooter because I am not. There's a lot of factors in shooting. Obviously, it's gonna depend on your touch and on your form, but balance is one of those really important things when you're shooting a jump shot. I'm sure a lot of you hoopers will still shoot the ball well and play well no matter what the shoe is. They may have went wild with the upper of the shoe, but I really love that they went with two of the most reliable traction patterns. They have the radial pattern and the herringbone pattern in the outsole. I was able to play with these shoes in 3 different courts. In the really clean courts, the traction performance was very good. I was able to reap the full benefits of the shoe. In the dustier court, I was affected by dust, but take that with a grain of salt because I saw other shoes that were also suffering. You know, I had a friend who has the brand black Villains. The traction in those is amazing. If he was slipping, any other shoe will slip. I think it was more of a floor problem than a shoe problem. The outsole here extends upwards. You can see it prominently going here in this side of the shoe. If you're a toe dragger, when you constantly shift movements, I think you will find that useful. In terms of durability outdoors, I am taking an educated guess that it won't last very long just by the fact that it's translucent, at least in the red parts here. The traction patterns seem fairly tough, but they're not protruding that much. If you plan to use these shoes outdoors, go right ahead. It's going to be very good for you. I just don't think it will last long. The good thing though is that the traction pattern in these shoes is herringbone and radial, so that means it's even throughout. So when it starts to fray out for you, it's going to fray out evenly. If you had a shoe that had like a crazy storytelling pattern, then it might be a different case. There might be versions of this shoe that will have a solid outsole, so that may be a better option for you in terms of getting your money's worth. That is about it for my performance review of the Adidas Harden Volume 7s. I really love that the shoe had a hybrid quality to it, and by that I mean it was a heavy shoe, but it still felt light on foot. It has this minimal ankle sock collar, and yet you get a nice supportive feel from the thicker materials. The cushion is not overly stiff. It has some nice bounce to it. Hopefully it will cater to a lot of people. As always, the most important thing is to use your shoes and just have fun playing out there. My name is Alan, and I'll see you again on the next performance review. Peace.